Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So, you want to learn how to make a great killer self tape, one that optimizes your performance. Well, you've come to the right place. Good morning, guys. How you doing? Hey, Brian. How are you? Anybody else out there? I think people might be a little bit locked down, worried today. Anyway, good to see you guys. So, I want to talk a little bit today about how we can look at performance. How performance is really important in your self tapes. What it is you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to break it down. First thing I want to talk about is this. I want to discuss what I call the, good morning, Indra, how you doing? What I call the objective viewpoint. This is the first thing. People often ask me, they say, well, how do you break it down? What do you actually do? And the first thing I do is I read the script. Usually your sides come in and I either get the sides on their own or more often I get this, hello, Emily, how are you, darling? Good to see you. Uh, I either get the sides or, I always ask for the script if I can. And if I get the script, that's great. And that gives you more information. But more often than not, what happens for me and for other clients, what happens sometimes is you get just the sides. So the first thing is to see how it is that you can work that out. Good morning, Kieran. How are you doing? Good to see you. So how we can break down a script, that's the first thing that I want to talk about. When you get a screenplay in, and I'm a BBC TV produced screenwriter, so I've written scripts as well, and I do a lot of coaching about that as well. Screenplays are written in a very particular way. The way that they're written is what I call, roughly speaking, it's a 3-act structure. Sometimes it's 5 acts, but we won't go into that. This is not a class on screenwriting. It's a 3-act structure. You get the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the screenplay itself is broken down into, this thing happens, this is the middle part of it, and this is the conclusion of what happens, okay? That's roughly what all screenplays do. They are then broken down into what's known as sequences. We break up a sequence. You might think of, say, for example, morning, how are you doing, Kieran? How are you? They might say, for example, you might have in a James Bond scene, you may have the chase sequence. You may have the, who have we got? Ah, Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. How are you doing? The chase sequence. You may have the breaking into the bank. You may have the falling in love sequence. Okay, the sequences that happens where a particular part of the story takes place. Then what happens is, excuse me, you get that broken down into. Actually, why don't I just play a video? I've got a video about this that you might like. Here we go. This is quite an old one I made some time back.
Think of your movie as a 3-bedroomed wooden house.
Your movie is a 3-bedroomed wooden house.
There are 3 bedrooms in the house. That's the entire movie. Bedroom number 1 is Act 1, number 2 is Act 2, and number 3 is Act 3. Let's just look at bedroom number 1. Now, inside this wooden room, you will see there are different pieces of furniture. There are some chairs and tables, and each piece inside represents a scene within that act. And now let's just look at a chair for a moment. Let's look at this chair, this wooden chair. It has legs, it has arms, and it has a back, and it has slats. All of those are the components that make up the scene. But inside each of these pieces are nails. The nails hold it all together. If you take one of these nails out and look at that nail is your action for the scene. Play each nail. Do not play the house. Play the nail. And guess what will happen to your audition? Yes! You'll nail it! Can't believe I said.
Right. So you might get an idea of how you break it all down. So when you're looking at your self-tape, you're looking for what your performance is, you want to find out what the sides tell you. The sides are really, this is where you're going to go into what I call the Sherlock phase. You know, you're putting on your investigation hat. We're looking at this the screenplay, and we're looking at the side, and we're looking at the scene that you've been asked to do. And usually the scene is broken down in the same way into 3 acts. There will be the beginning of the scene, the middle of the scene, and the end of the scene. Most screenwriting these days doesn't start with, good morning, doctor, how nice to see you. It starts in the middle of a scene, because that's the way most screenwriting happens. It's always, writers are always told, get in at the last possible moment to start a scene, get out at the earliest opportunity, okay? Morning, honey, how are you doing? Lovely to see you. So that's what we want to be looking at. We want to be looking inside and discovering how it is that the scenes themselves are created. This is, as I said, this is the objective viewpoint. We're looking at it like this. So read your script at least 3 or 4 times, get into the scene, and then start to objectify what is actually going on in the scene. Where is the beginning? And mark them, mark it down. Where is the beginning? Where is the middle? Where is the end? And each one of those flips will be the transitions that you're looking for. Scenes go zig, zag, zog, right? They're always done like that. They show you like that. Sometimes there might be a few more movements, but generally speaking, that's what they're looking for. And you've probably noticed that yourself. If you have, let me know in the comments. Have you found that to be the case when you look at the sides that you get? Do you recognize that there is a pattern? Can you see the pattern that they're actually actively asking for? And you can begin to see what it is that they're looking for. They might be looking for this transition, a particular transition. They might be looking for a moment where something happens. They might be looking for the moment where she is told the news that she gets cancer. They might be looking for the moment where he is told that he is no longer going to be working as a plumber. He is now going to be chosen to be the next astronaut to go into space. Oh, there's an idea, right? Get the idea? That kind of thing, okay? So you want to notice the moments. When you can do those things, you can bring out the shape and the structure that they're looking for in terms of the sides that you're going for. Then it will give you more of a handle and more of an understanding of what it is they're looking for. So the second thing I want to talk about is when you discover what that moment is or that point is in the scene that they're looking for, amplify it. I call this the focal point amplification, FPA, focal point amplification. So let's say in the example we gave earlier, let's say the scene is where she discovers that she has got cancer. Okay, that's the moment that they're looking for. That's the part of the story that they're actively searching for. So what you want to do is to make sure that you amplify that moment, because that becomes a very clear moment that they're looking for. And then we'll come on to the third point about, how we do that, okay? Also look at, say, for example, how many of you guys have been watching Normal People? Anyone seen Normal People? Let me know in the comments. Have you seen Normal People? Yes? No? Maybe? Let me know. Have you seen Normal People? Yes or no? Come on, guys. What have you done? Nobody's seen it. Nobody's seen Normal People. Nobody? Okay. Well, look, the thing is, what I'm trying to do, the reason I'm trying to get you to think about this is that when you start seeing scenes in television programs or in movies, I want you to start looking now more as if you are the Sherlock. You want to be looking for investigation. Look for the moments. Emily says, yeah, but not completed it. Yeah, no, me too. I'm up to episode 10. I've done 10, 2 to go. So when you see these moments, Honey hasn't. Oh, Honey, you'd love it. You'd love it. It's just great. You've got to see it. Amber, oh, great. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you dive into the moments that actually think, the moments that actually work out. Hey, Arlene, how you doing? Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you. Oh, good, good. Brian, get out there. See it, man. Get into it. Watch it. Indra, go see it. Absolutely, go see it. You've got to see it. There are moments when the camera just hangs on someone's face. And we know that that person's life has changed beyond belief. Hey, Sean, how are you? Changed beyond belief. Right? Would you agree with that? It's that devastation that we want to see. It's that revelation that we want to see. It's the moment that their life changes. It's the moment the woman gets cancer. It's the moment within the context of the scene that something happens. They are the moments. In fact, when you keep thinking, when you start looking more as I call it Sherlock, you're looking and looking. When you find yourself watching something, and guys, you've got to be watching television all the time. You've got to be watching. I've dropped out. Have I? Can you hear me, guys? I think I might have dropped out for you, Kimberly. Not yet. Oh, can you all hear me still? Yeah, I seem to be going. Okay, Kimberly needs to. I think Kimberly dropped out. I think that's what Kimberly means. Anyway, drop back in whenever you're ready, Kimberly. It'd be nice to have you back. So, when we find, these little scenes that kind of create moments of tension in ourselves, or when we're watching, we're on the notice what it is, what's going on inside of you, and see what it is that you've just seen. Wind it back, revisit, and start to look for what I call the focal point amplification. Thanks, Emily. Good. The focal point amplification. Find the one thing, and it's usually one thing in each scene that you want to turn up the volume. And the way that you do that is going to be down to your artistry and to the way that things happen, so that you can find more of a kind of oh, Martina's late. Oh my goodness. Martina's late. What will we do? Let's not worry about it. Let's give her a round of applause. Fantastic. Welcome, Martina. So you'll be able to catch all this in the replay as well, guys. So again, focal point amplification, the single moment in each self-tape, each side, each audition that you're doing for, the one moment. And use your artistry. Don't do what everybody else does. And I'll come on to that in a second. So just to remind everybody there, anyone who hasn't had a free call with me, yeah, you're very welcome to come along and take one of those. Indra, I think you probably have one. Kieran, you're welcome to have one. Sean, if you want to have one. Amber, if you want to have one. Oh, Kieran, you're coming on Monday, aren't you? That's great, brilliant. Kimberly, you've had one. I know you have. Da, da, da. Anyway, anyone who hasn't, do come along and have the free call. The masterclass is coming soon. I'll be doing this kind of a thing, bringing bits and pieces in so you can see a bit more about what's going on in the process. And I'll leave in the comments below after here. I'll leave the details under there. So do come along and join that if you'd like to. Also, I recommend anyone here, coming along and joining not Total Audition Magician, but the Action Club. The Action Club is super cool. Super, 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 super cool. And you will have a great time doing it. And I'm going to show you one of the things from that now. Monday. Yeah, great. Absolutely. Look forward to that. Fantastic. So one of the things here that I've got is this. I want to talk about the third thing. Yeah, you come along, Indra. Absolutely. It'd be great to see you. So you just go onto my website, nickdunning.com, and just sign up. It's real simple. So this is what I want to do. Don't be vanilla, says Brian. Absolutely. Let's stop being vanilla. Let's make that the mantra. That's the mantra. Stop being vanilla. That would be the one thing I would want anyone to take away from this. It's absolutely, absolutely true. The third thing I want to talk about is how to go deeper. It's like what tends to happen in most people's self-tapes that I see, and as a lot of you know, when I work with actors, one of the things I do is, with coaching clients, anyways, we look at some of their scenes that they're doing. We look at their self-tapes and I give them feedback on that. And we suggest this or we suggest that or whatever. And one of the things I notice from self-tapes when people show them to me is that they often have gone for what I call the first level, the first thought. So if you've got, say, for example, let's go back to this with the scene of this woman who just gets told that she's got cancer, right? The woman has just been told she's got cancer. She's in the hospital. The doctor says, "I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Maloney, that I've got to tell you that you've got cancer." And usually the scene would go something like this. This is what I call first level thinking. Doctor comes in, looks serious, worried, concerned, approaches gently. "Mrs. Maloney, I'm sorry to tell you, but..." cut to her face. "You've got cancer." Right? How many times have we seen that? How many times have we seen that on television? Let me know in the comments. How many times have you seen that scene? Right? Think about all the scenes that you've ever been asked to play, and how many times have you seen them played out in exactly the same way? One of the things I want you to take away from this is that is absolutely the case for casting directors, for directors, for producers. They have all seen the doctor coming in like that and using that tone. Yeah, plenty of times. Okay? Now, if you're casting something and you see that over and over and over again, let's say you're doing, it's a big casting session. You're going up for, there are 14 of you who look exactly like you in the room, right? So many times. Exactly, honey. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you see that level, what I call the first level choices, and you just go, okay, that's what it is. I've just got to do that. Now, look, sometimes I know, sometimes you can be so fast, you don't really get the chance to dive in. But stop, take a few more minutes, give yourself a little more time. Dive under the surface a bit more, come up with at least the second or the third level interpretation. Dive in deeper. Okay? One of the ways you can do that, if you're a member of the Action Club, you'll get copies of this. I've got the checklist. This is, what do I want from a scene? What is it that I want to do? What do I want from the other character? Her approval, his love, her rage, his agreement. What am I looking for? What's my obstacle? What is it that I'm trying to fight for in the scene? What's stopping me from getting the goal? What actions do others take to stop me getting my goal? Does my sister use that funny, cute voice to soften her approach? Does the garage mechanic dazzle me with engine science bullshit because I'm a woman? What are the obstacles that are going on? How do you get what you want? Where are the transitions in the scene? You've got to start looking for the transitions. As you approach your goal, you may need to change tack. What actions do you take next? Do you move from dominating someone to seducing someone? That is a transition. What's my relationship to the people I'm speaking to? What's my relationship to the people I'm speaking about? Each one of these questions are guaranteed to help you go deeper and deeper and deeper into what it is that you need to know. What's at stake? This is I might even do a little bit about this actually. I think this is very important. This is the number one thing. What's at stake? Okay, the stakes. What happens if you win the goal? What happens if what happens if you find out that you get cancer? What happens if you win? Do you get what? What are your results? Do you win? Do you lose? What do you get? What's the obvious? This is the thing. What's the obvious way to play the scene? Bin it, ditch it. Okay? Dr. Dreamy has a stethoscope around his neck and fancies the patient, so flirts cheesily to get her attention. Flirts cheesily is written down as the obvious choice. That's often what the writer will write down. Bear in mind, the writer is trying to communicate to executives who often don't understand what screenwriting is about, and they don't understand acting in the same way. They are more business people. So flirts cheesily is an easy way to understand the way that someone is actually doing it. Don't fall for those things, guys. And there's lots more of these things, okay? Choose the alternative. Look beneath the obvious and shut the door. Just get out of the scene. So those are the kind of things that you can learn. All of this stuff, there's hundreds of these checklists I have in the Action Club. Any of you guys members? Who's members of the Action Club? I think Honey is, isn't she? I think Honey is. Anyway, do consider it, guys. It's such good stuff. And it's growing by the day. So the other thing I wanted to just talk about that little bit there. What was I going to mention? Yeah, stakes. I think this is a bonus. I wasn't expecting to do this. Any time that you see, let's say for example, you've got this actually came about with a friend of mine I was talking to in America, who is an actor and a coach, and he talks about he does an awful lot of work with Shakespearean acting as I do. Okay, and one of the things that he was mentioning is if you're doing Shakespeare or a monologue or something like that, or a scene that's quite difficult in some way. You know, sometimes you look at a scene and it's really difficult. One of the things that really helps you to break through and make new choices is to raise the stakes. Literally raising the stakes. Yeah, honey, absolutely. Kieran said, that's like Kieran said. That's fantastic. So if you raise the stakes in any scene, you will guarantee to get yourself different reactions. Sean is late again. I don't know why it makes sense. I always get these lovely little emails from Sean saying, "I'm terribly sorry I was late, but a cockerel had a mastectomy." These are strange things. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry I'm late, but a lamb did something. Sean is this big-hearted woman looking after all these animals and acting. Can you imagine? So she's anyway, Sean, don't worry, no problem at all. So if you can, maybe you've got some examples of a scenes that you've done yourself, anything like that you know about, anything that you can think of. Yeah, Kimberly's a member, absolutely. That when you get to approach a scene in some way like this, if you raise the stakes for any scene that you're doing, anything that you're going for, you will double the ability, the tension in the scene. You will automatically create more involvement. You will create more. Just think of any scene you like. Let's say for example, the doctor has to come in and say to the woman, "You've got cancer." If the stakes are that what he's doing or she's doing, if the stakes are that it's a matter of life or death, it totally changes the motivation of the person. It totally changes that attitude. If the doctor is about to die, if he's under threat, if she's under threat, yeah, Martinez, remember, absolutely. If they're under threat and their life is in danger, okay, then it changes the dynamic of the scene. If you've got a scene, you know, let's hit that cliche one we were talking about there, which was Clara's just joined. Oh, how fantastic. Clara, are you there? Are you there today, Clara? Is Clara Fitzgerald there? Come in, Clara Fitzgerald. If you have any chance of changing, you know, a scene, if it's the one thing that you want to do to really to change a scene in some way, that would be a really good way of doing it. Yeah. So, guys, any questions that any of you have about anything that we're talking about? Does any of it make sense? Is any of it sort of leaving you confused? Oh, and just remember to do this. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, hit the notifications. Really does. It'll give you an idea, because I'm going to be posting an awful lot of stuff, so you don't want to miss out on those. So, you know, any questions? Is anything anyone has any? Maybe there's some examples from something you're doing. Oh, Clara's there. Fantastic. Oh, lovely. Great. Okay. If there's anything that you guys are there, anything that you're missing out on, or something like that, let me know. Any questions that you have now, pop them in. Anything as well, if any of you want me to cover in future topics. I'm going to do a little bit more about self-taping on Friday, and I want to talk a bit more about like a kind of overview of the whole thing, of what it is that we've been doing, because you'll probably be aware, those of you who haven't, and if you haven't, do subscribe and go back and see the previous ones, all there. You know, we covered the first video was all about what it is, what I call the first pillar, the first principle that you really need to know is what it is that casting directors are looking for. What is it that they want? If you don't answer that question, nothing's going to happen. You've got to know what they want. So really worth revisiting that. The second thing we talked about was cameras and lights, the production side of it. The production pillar, the pillar of production, okay? How you actually do it, you know, what cameras you use, lights, microphones, backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. That's all in there. I come back to that, Kieran. That's a great question. So that's what we did for the second one. The third thing we talked about was the psychology of it and how we use the permission stamp. Yeah. How we use the permission stamp to actually give ourselves permission to have a great scene, you know, to have a great time. And we make the bold decisions. We covered that on Monday. And then today we're looking at the performance. These are the 4 principles of a great self-tape. 4 principles. Okay, here we go. Questions. Fantastic. Kieran's come in. What the example of flirts cheesily? Would you choose to flirt a different way or ignore the direction? I would ignore the direction altogether. Because flirts cheesily, as I was saying, is apart from the fact, the main reason that I would absolutely ignore that, and I cross out all of those, anything that says, you know, happily, angrily, okay? Let me ask you this. If I ask you to play, okay, I'll give you a demonstration. Flirts cheesily, okay? Well, hello. Where are you from? Very nice to see you. Okay. Did I really do that? Okay. You get the idea, right? If you flirt cheesily, the first thing that you're doing is you're looking at an outside action. You cannot play flirt cheesily. I cannot flirt cheesily with someone. That is the way someone might have a perception of what it was I was doing. I might say, I watched this woman yesterday. She was flirting cheesily with this guy. Or he's flirting cheesily with that elderly woman, right? But the action, the activity that the person is playing isn't to flirt cheesily. The action is to literally to seduce. Again, obviously it depends on the scene, but usually that would be the action, to seduce the other person. To seduce in a particular way. How you do it, what you choose, that's your choice, that's your talents, that's where the choices, they come through. Yeah? Okay. Sean just said that she took my quiz and suddenly realized how little she knows about what anyone wants. Well, good. That's the point of it. Absolutely. That's the point. Yeah, the parentheticals. Sean's talking about writing the scripts. Yeah, leaving out the parentheticals is really, really, really a good thing to do because it makes you judge yourself and look at yourself while you're doing it. That's the worst thing you can possibly do. Stay stuck down to. I like the other crossing off to seduce boils it down. Exactly. That's what getting down to the intention. Acting is always about is a transitive verb. Always. I am trying to get you at the moment. I'm trying to encourage you to join the action club. I'm trying to entice you to follow the stuff that I'm doing. I'm trying to educate you about what it is that we're doing. I'm trying to inform you about new ways of I'm trying to make you laugh about a few other things. I'm trying to comfort you about certain things. I'm trying to mystify you about certain things. I'm trying to seduce you about other things and make you feel differently. Because the more I can change the way that you think and you feel, the more you'll understand what I'm doing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's always active. You're always active. I'm always want something to do to the other person to change their state, to change their thoughts, to change their direction, to move them in a different way. People, that's what human beings do. We all do this all the time. Yeah, so Kieran says, yeah, crossing off all those suggestions to seduce boils it down. Exactly. It brings you right down to the single moment, to the nail of the scene. Each action within a scene, each line is a nail. And each one of those nails is your activity or your action that you're doing to the other person. Now, Amber says, what video is the information for walking through? It was the first one of these. I did, if you go onto the YouTube channel, are you subscribed there, Amber? Just let me know. If you've subscribed, you'll be able to get hold of it. So that's all you got to do. Go on and just subscribe onto my YouTube channel, which you can probably do at the end of this. Just and ring the bell. That's all you got to do. One of those. And as soon as you've done that, then you'll be able to get hold of it, I'm sure. You'll notice I've done 3 or 4 about the acting auditions, and then 3 about 4. Is it 4 now? Yeah, 4 now about self-taping. And the first one would be self-taping 1. That would be the one that you want to look at. Yeah, cool, fantastic, Amber, great. So those are the kind of things that that can help. Are there any other questions in there? What was that? Yeah, Sean's written scripts leaves out the parentheticals. Yeah, so actors can work properly. Absolutely. Very, very important to do that. Kimberly says, what about one-liners? I think one-liners are exactly the same. One-liner, 3 lines. You know, sometimes you can do... the biggest advice I would say about one-liners is not to make it feel like a huge tent pole moment. Do you know what I mean by that? What I mean by that, if you've got 1 line in the scene or 3 lines in the scene, there's nothing worse. You know that thing when you can see, you know, you imagine it like if you watch say, for example, a television show or something, and, you know, the camera moves in suddenly down the line like this, and here it is, here it comes, and suddenly the man says, "Good morning, sir, how are you?" And it completely changes the entire thing. And you realize that that actor has just decided they're going to do the most they possibly can with that 1 line to create this extraordinary effect that is going to have ramifications for the rest of their life. And it doesn't. Usually 1 line often is something like, you know, you might be say, come in here for tea, for example, or it might be, you know, this way, doctor, you know, that kind of a line. And if you are playing in that this way, doctor, for example, could be a servant, right? A servant is bringing in the male, female doctor. They've ridden all across, you know, the Yorkshire moors, and they're just coming in to say, "This way, doctor." The camera is going to be, the story is not going to be on the servant, unless it is, but usually it won't be. It's going to be on the woman coming in. And the servant is there to support the scene. The servant's action in that scene is to gently direct. This way, sir. This way, sir. So if you've got one line, unless you find that there's something extraordinary, is there something really unusual, definitely give yourself a couple of takes maybe, and do a couple of takes. Do one that's just very simple and one that's just a little bit more quirky. You can still invest any character with history. That's why I go back to the checklist thing all the time. When you go back, I use this all day long. Personally, this is where it's all come from. Look for, how does it go at the start? Sorry to have to go back. This is the performance checklists, right? Yeah. Oh, that's me. How do I start? What's the beginning of the scene? Do you make an entrance? Do you slide in? Are you already there? Do you speak first? Are you in the middle of something? And usually you are. Is it a debate? A moment of tension? And then ask yourself, what is the moment before your first beat? And then what is your first beat? See, if this is the moment when a scene starts, the writer has been thinking, okay, I have to come in at this point of the scene. This is when I want the scene to start. But everything before that, every single thing before that, is somebody's life. It's where they're at. It's what they're doing. Let's say it's the servant we've just been talking about. Prior to that particular moment where she has to direct the doctor into the room, she may have been downstairs. She may have had a terrible time with the butler. She may have had all this kind of a background. We don't know. But you can suggest that. That's up to you. You can choose to make those decisions. If it's only one line, if this servant was in deep misery, was grieving for someone, and then had to say, this way, sir, it would just give you a completely different tone, a different flavour to the single one line. I would go for that. As a director, I would be more interested in something. I think, oh, well, that's interesting. What's that person doing there with that one line, or those 3 lines, right? You're not overwhelming the scene at all, but what you're doing is investing every single thing, everything you do, every choice that you make with humanity. You're using your imagination to invest. And when you do that, everybody that you're connecting to begins to understand more and more what it is that you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Yeah? Any other questions, guys? Emily says, Hannah said to me that the really effective sound of the actor is quite still and not too big. Yes, I mean often, I mean one of the things we talk about in Total Audition Magician is camera stillness, and silence. We were talking about the other day, that if I'm playing a scene and I say to you, it has an effect, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Stillness is really powerful. I've got a whole video about this in Total Audition Magician on camera stillness, how you do it. Actors who are, unheard actors who are not quite familiar with it, what they tend to do is they tend to go, there tends to be something happening in a way. And it's better to slow the brain down so you can slow things down inside. Does that help, Emily? Does that answer your question? Let me know. Hani says, sometimes I think and feel customers who don't know what they want. Yes, maybe they didn't get it. I couldn't agree more. That is true. Absolutely, absolutely true. I know this. I've sat in on meetings with directors while actors have come in. I've read with people, um, and they don't. They don't know. But that's okay. The reason that's okay is because that means that you can be the person that they want. You can show them what to think. You can direct them in the way that you choose. You can bring them along on your journey. You can show them that you know what they should be doing. And by the way, when we say cast directors don't know what they want, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. It doesn't mean that they don't know. What it often means from a casting director's point of view, and I've spoken to hundreds of them, what happens is they can. Someone once described it as putting together a jigsaw, right? That I think is quite a good analogy. You know, that if you're trying to get together a family, or you're trying to get together a group of people, say for example normal people, you were trying to get together, you know, a group of people who all went to Trinity at a certain time in Ireland. Okay, there are certain types, different shades that you want to bring out. We've got the two leads in the middle of all of this thing, and we've got the people surrounding, sort of satellites around them. And there's something kind of incredibly recognizable about those people that they have around them. Would you agree? And that's because the casting has been so specific about choosing the pieces of the jigsaw all the way around. When you see bad casting, it sticks out like a sore thumb. When you see great casting, you don't even notice it because it's so. Look at Ang Lee's films, anything of Ang Lee's films. Have you ever seen Sense and Sensibility? Oh my God, what a movie! Check it out. Okay. Um, yes, they don't know. They don't know. You're right, honey. Absolutely right. Honey also says, how do you deal with it? What if they want you to do the stage direction? Like, for example, what if they want you to do the stage direction? Wasn't cheesy enough? Can you give them more cheesy? Well, that's a different thing. I think that's a different question, because if someone says, "Yeah, that wasn't cheesy. That wasn't very cheesy," I think you have to interpret that. So cheesy. Okay, again the same. So okay, so the director says, "Honey, that was terrific, but I want you to do that more cheesily." Okay, and you know, as an actor, I can't play cheesily. It's awful. How do I do that? Then you have to interpret what is it that they're trying to mean. And within a second, and you only get that, you want to figure out, again, what's my intention? What is my intention? What do I want from the scene? What do I want from the other person? What am I trying to do to that person? I'm trying to seduce them. So that when she says, I want you to flirt more cheesily, maybe she means, I want you to seduce more intensely. See what I'm saying? Okay, so there's a translation. You can just go, I don't speak that kind of speak. This is my language. My language is this, because this is what I'm doing. I had a I had a director once. As a film, I did a film with Kelsey Grammer, and the director came around and said, "This was at the audition stage." He said, "Yeah, great, Nick. That's really cool. That's great. I really enjoyed that. Could you be more English?" What? More English. I said, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, more English. And I thought, what does he mean? Oh, yeah, okay. He means all more authoritarian, right? Or more kind of, evil bastard English, that kind of thing. He was coming from an American perspective, looking that way, and he wanted me to sort of crack the whip a bit more as a general, that kind of thing. Okay? It's translating whatever they say into what works for you. Yeah? Makes sense. Great, great, great. Complete sense. Yes! Hooray! Now, Kieran says, sometimes when I'm still, it throws off my inner monologue. Sometimes when I'm still, it throws off my inner monologue active listening, especially if my character's not talking. While I'm still in the scene, it seems to come across on tape that I'm not in the scene, or you're boring. You're being very heavy on yourself today, Kieran. What makes you think you're boring? That's a judgment you have on yourself. You're much more interesting than that. I've had a drink with you. You're much more interesting than that. Stop it. So sometimes when I'm still, it throws off my inner monologue. I know what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is that you're in the scene, you're playing the scene with someone, and then you go still. And because you're going still, you're thinking about going still, but you're not being still. Is that the difference? Is that what you mean? Let me know, because that is just a question of focus. That's just a question of focusing more internally. And that's one of the things I teach in the Total Audition Magician, that the way you can go inside when those things happen, how you can keep the scene moving when you go inside, because it's very important. So that, you know, for example, if I'm playing a scene with you now and I can feel that, you know, it's still going on. I'm still playing the scene, but I'm listening. I'm really listening. I'm not active listening. I'm listening. If I'm active listening, what I tend to be doing is thinking about the fact that I'm listening. See what I mean? Active listening, I understand where it comes from. I understand the need for it. But active listening means you're doing the act of listening. What you're not doing is listening. Because when people talk, we chat like this. You know, you say, how are you today? I'm fine. I'm listening everyone ahead of you. You're listening to me, and we're talking here. And then we're coming back. And coming back to you, back to me. I'm really listening. If I'm actively listening, see the difference? That makes sense? Especially if your character's not talking. Ah, yeah, you see, that's the other one, isn't it? When you're not talking. People think that they're not interesting when they're not talking. People are fascinating when they're not talking. My wife and children try and get me to stop talking all the time. It's true. You can imagine. Can you imagine living with me? I mean, I'm like this a lot of the time. What can I say? Okay. Anyway, I hope that gives you some food for thought. Any other questions, let me know. Any of you guys, you know, come along and have a free call, sign up on the site, do all that stuff. You'd enjoy it. It's good crack. And yes, who was it? Indra wanted one, didn't you? Yeah, come on to go on to nickdunning.com and sign up for a free call. And we'll see you when we see you. All right, guys, listen, fantastic. Anything else that anyone wants to say before we round it up for the day? Yeah? Anything going? Well, then I leave you with this thought. Ring the bell, subscribe, tell your friends, see you Friday. Okay? All right, guys, lots of love, and we'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye now. You are great crack. Absolutely. You are. Absolutely. All right, guys, all the best. See you Friday. Bye now. Tell your friends.